this week, and I said the devil is a fool. If you tired and weary, you tired and weary.
I'm tired in body, not in soul, though.
All right. Well, now we talking.
There you go.
All right, all right, all right. Let's see here. Let me do this really quickly.
Man, you moved your studio because it don't sound like no studio no more.
Yeah, me? I moved.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let me do a little bit of this here.
All right.
Yeah.
Come on, lift your hands and declare.
Marquita not getting on.
Yeah.
I'm about to mute.
I pulled that one out, Reggie.
And I will remain. Come on, declare it. And I will remain.
Feedback, come on, feedback.
And I will remain. We trust in you, Lord. Our hope is in you. Our faith is in you, oh God. We trust in you. We put all the weight before us on you. We lift every care tonight in worship. You are the everlasting God. You're the only true and living God. And you will do what you said you're going to do. We set our hope on you tonight.
All right, all right, all right, all right. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Frontline Volume 4. This is a continuation of what we had 2 weeks ago. This is still Volume 4. This is just part 2 of Volume 4. I lost 2 of my guests, but I guess they'll be back in. And initially, when we started talking a couple of weeks ago, we started talking about the evolution of gospel music and Christian contemporary music. And that conversation took a life of its own. And we ended up talking about musicians and money and ministers or pastors and all things thereof. And man, I'm talking about it got really, really deep. You know what I'm saying? And we laughed. It was funny, but it was serious at the same time. And at the point where we were almost done with that session, we really weren't done because there were some other questions that had came up, man, some issues, some serious stuff in relation to that topic. And I think the day after, maybe the day after, or maybe 2 days after, Pastor Reggie Royal and I talked, and he said something that I found to be true. Usually when we have these types of conversations, we always hear it from the musician's point of view. We hardly ever hear the pastor's point of view. And the truth of the matter is, sometimes pastors get a bad rap. And now, if we be honest, though, some of them deserve it. Let's just be truthful about that. Just as some musicians deserve it, you know what I'm saying? But every pastor is not bad. Every musician is not bad. There are millions of good, integral men and women that handle the business. You know what I'm saying? And you never have a problem with it. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we will be continuing this discussion. This will be the conclusion, I think, of the discussion. And we are going to be talking about just that: musicians, ministers, and money. Money, money, money. It is a taboo topic, especially in the church. It's something everybody wants, but don't a lot of people like to talk about. Money in the church. But we have to be realistic and know that it takes money to operate a church. And in the church, we have a lot of stuff going on, and one of the greatest voices that you will hear aside from the pastor is the music ministry. Whether it be a choir, a praise team, you hear them sometimes more than the pastor, depending on what church you go to. And we have these musicians. I have these musicians here that you're looking at: James Anderson, Donald Woods, Rob Woolridge, who are nationally and internationally known for their craft. They have recorded with some of everybody. They have their own projects. And Marquita, I guess she'll be in a moment. Oh no, let me put her in. All right. And we respect them, and we appreciate them, and we enjoy listening to them do what they do. But what a lot of people don't realize is that when all the hoopla dies down, when they through with all the riffs and runs and boom clacks and all of that, they got to be paid. These musicians have to be paid. And it's not fair. This is just my intro, y'all. It's a long intro. It's not fair for us as pastors to not pay musicians properly, timely, and especially it's not fair for us not to pay them at all. Now, I am a pastor. I'm not a senior pastor, but I am in the pastorate. I do serve as an associate pastor of my church. And I mean, a lot of what we do has to do with finances. And here's what I do know. A pastor is not always going to be okay with saying, oh, they didn't give me my money, it's all right. No, you're not going to hear that a lot. I guarantee you. So just as the pastors would like to be compensated for what they do, these musicians should be compensated for what they do as well. So let's start there, and I want to introduce all of my guests tonight. They are back with me tonight. My people: James Anderson is here, Donald Woods is here, Rob is here, Rob Woolridge Jr. Let's make that clear, because it ain't his daddy, it's Junior on with us tonight. And Marquita, I don't know why she's not on camera, but I'm sure she'll be in. And like I said earlier, when Pastor Reggie and I talked, he said this to me, and he was right. Usually when we have these conversations, we hear it from the musician side, but we never hear the pastor side. And so I'm really, really glad to have a longtime brother, Pastor Reggie Royal, on with us tonight, who is speaking from a pastor's perspective. And he too is a recording artist. The song that you heard when you guys were coming in a few minutes ago, that was Pastor Reggie Royal and Judah singing Everlasting God. So you can get that on all streaming platforms as well. Well, how y'all doing? Everybody all right? Y'all come off of mute.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
We
Always
good. We
man.
good, man. We just waiting for the pastor to get done with his intro. You know.
Right.
I have to lay the foundation.
It was like three parts, right?
He knocked 3 closes.
He had 3 points in his first. He closed 3 times.
So, Pastor Reggie, let me start with you. These guys were here 2 weeks ago. How are you doing tonight, man?
Wonderful. And thanks for allowing me to be on tonight. I didn't think I would be the only pastor on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, thanks for letting me be on. I want to first say grace and peace to all that are on the call, to Buster and James. I've not had the privilege of meeting Rob. I have met Marquita before. And thank you all for assisting and doing what you do in your field. And I've had the privilege of working with James and with Buster. Buster produced our first CD. Years ago, we were young and didn't know what we were doing. And Buster helped us out in a great deal with that. I remember, man, that was the dudes. I remember like a couple of days before the recording, we were supposed to be at one church and you moved us to Rock of Ages. We talk about those days often. I promise you know what we were doing, but we wanted to record and we had the resources and you were a great deal and we've been friends ever since. And so thank you for letting me be on here to give just a pastor's perspective. I want to make this clear. I didn't come on to debate what you guys talked about before. I thought the conversation was rich. I thought it was diverse. I thought there were a lot of perspectives and a lot of insight, things people didn't know. But I always thought when I hear this, I never really hear a pastor's perspective. And like you said, pastors get a bad rap, so do musicians. So I'm not really here to debate that. I'm here to kind of just give a perspective from a pastor's position. Yeah, we record it, but I don't consider myself a recording artist because I don't know a lot about the ins and outs of musicians and pay. So I depend on those that are around me to help me with that. But I do have a perspective of a pastor that I think really needs to be considered in these conversations. So thanks for having me, Will. Can you hear me, man?
Will is muted. We trying to unmute him. Go ahead, mute him. He excited. Well, Will too excited.
I had to unmute it myself. My bad.
Okay. All right.
So here's what I'm going to do really quickly. Let's go James, Donald, Rob, and then Marquita. You all introduce yourselves to those who are watching. They are new. I'm going to jump out and I'm going to come right back in. By the time you all finish, just take a minute or two. By the time you get done with that, we'll be ready to go.
What's up, guys? I'm James Anderson from Chicago, Illinois, born and raised West Side. I've been serving in ministry for about maybe 15 to 20 years, different churches on the West Side. I'm a member of Lifeline Church. My pastor, Reggie's on here. My mentor is on here, Donald Buster Woods, who kind of gave me the ropes of basically who I am today. I'm just grateful to serve.
Hey, everybody. I'm Donald Buster Woods. Let's see. What can I say about me? First thing I want to say, I want to get this logo out my face. And well, let me see. Which way to move? Let's see. Oh, Lord. Hold on. Okay, over here. Oh, yeah, over here. Okay, so I've been in gospel music since, again, started playing in church at the age of 7. Started playing violin at the age of 9, trumpet, organ at the age violin at 8, piano and organ at 9, trumpet at 10, just on and on and on. Just, of course, went to school to be a music educator. And I also have been teaching either privately or for organizations for over 30 years now. So I have been in music or somewhere around music for a very long time. So I'm just glad to be here. I hope I can add something to the conversation. I'm going through my text messages right now, inviting pastors to join this conversation, to get on here, because I want us to have more than just one point of view from Pastor Reggie. I think that's too much. Wait for one pastor to take all by itself.
Thank you, sir.
So I'm going through my text messages, and hopefully we can get another pastor to come on. I was hoping that Pastor DeAndre was there. We had a series of guests at his churches, and so he's been bogged down with those things. But yeah, music is what I love. Ministry is what I love. So I understand both sides of it. I've been in the offering counting room, and I've been in the musicians' meetings. So I know how it goes. I've been in a pastor's office, and I've been in the outside when the musicians didn't want to come back because they didn't get paid. So I've been through the whole gamut. And so as being a producer and a songwriter, I've, of course, experienced some things in that area too. So yeah, that's me, Donald Buster Woods. Thanks, guys.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Rob Woolridge. I'm bass guitarist, songwriter, producer. I came up under these two guys at the top, James and Donald Buster Woods. They pretty much raised me up in the music game. Yeah, that's about it. Buster took all my time, so I ain't gonna hold y'all long.
Man, stop that. John Stennis. That nigga was one of the Stennis boys.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marquita Lady O, and I've been playing for churches for the last 20 years. I play organ, and I am a professional singer.
I'm back. John says he was at.
I didn't get the pleasure of having Buster later on in life. I didn't get a chance to be founded by Buster but I did get a chance to meet him later on in life. What's happening?
Hold on, Marquita. Our whole seat.
Let's all mute. Let's all mute. I think that's him.
That's Pastor
I
Willie.
met Buster later on in life and just adopted him as my mentor later on. I got a chance to work on. I've worked with all these musicians before too, and I've had a chance to sing at Pastor Royal's church a few times on his stage, so I do know him too. And I'm just excited to be here again. Thank you for having me again, Pastor Willie Taylor.
We got to work on his hosting skills.
I think we lost him.
We got to get him right.
I would like to sing a solo at this time. Okay. While he's gone, let's try to. He's back.
All right, you guys, just give me a second. It turns out we have a special guest that's going to join us tonight. And yeah, this is about to go to a whole nother level with this guy. Hold on, yo. All right. So I am okay, we all good here? Yeah, I think we all right.
Yeah, we can hear you now. We're good.
Hold on.
Are they joining us like right now?
James, can you get that over to him?
Yep. Yep.
I think we lost him.
Okay, so I don't want it to be any dead air, guys. So let's talk about a couple of things. Pastor Reggie, what do you think the musician's role should be with the pastor? What kind of relationship should the pastor and are we going to call it the MD? Let's start with the MD, and then we'll move around to the rest of the band. But the pastor and the MD, what kind of relationship should they have?
I think it's important whether they're hired or actually part of the house.
Does that make a difference? Let's talk about that. Does that make a difference?
It makes a difference on other sides.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're talking about their relationship, there needs to be one to some degree.
Okay.
If we move forward in terms of meeting the objectives of the house, which relates to music and preaching going together.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's very important. I think you struggle when you don't have that.
Yeah.
I was at a church for 15 years and didn't really have that.
Mm.
We did well. I don't think we ever accomplished what we should have or could have.
Wow.
I never really jailed with the pastor. We didn't have a problem, but we didn't have a relationship either.
Okay. Okay.
I think that's very, very important. And I think it's not just necessary. I think both want that so we can do our jobs well.
Mhm.
Our job to do in certain musicians or the MD, or the MD or Minister of Music. And if we can do our jobs that much better if we have some type of relationship and not just meet up on Sunday and do our thing.
Right.
I think I come from a different breed though, Buster. I know a lot of the things you guys are talked about, it was insightful to me because I didn't know that. Like you talked about, you've been in the count room and things like that. I've never seen that. I've never been a part of that. When I led worship for 15 years, I never even got paid, number one. Number two, those that did didn't do it that way. So like our church, we just do payroll like at a company, like
Okay.
the 15th and the 30th. So I don't know how that is to wait for your money on Sundays and things like that. So I think churches that operate like that, that's okay. But I think that's why I wanted the pastor's perspective because everybody's different.
Yeah.
Pastors don't even know what that means to,
Uh-oh.
you know,
Wendell
have
Lowe
an
is
account room
popping
like that.
Wendell Lowe is here too. Oh God.
Oh, low, okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. I'm sorry, something just happened to my spirit. I'm sorry, Pastor Reggie. Because Wendell Lowe, now hold on. All right. Now, if y'all want to talk about something, this man got something to talk about too. But go ahead, Pastor Reggie. I'm with you.
You know, I said my piece on that.
Okay. What y'all think musicians do, what should the relationship be between pastor and MD or pastor and the musicians, or how should that relationship be? And is that important to cultivate a church? Because the end goal is to have a successful church. So how do you think that should be?
I'll go first. So I think it's very important for the minister of music or MD to have a great relationship with the pastor because they both need to have the same kindred hearts. So that way that nothing is left unsaid or undone, or far as what they want out of the music ministry. Like Pastor Reggie, he's a worship leader, and by him being a worship leader, he wants things differently than somebody else that's just a pastor. So I feel like, us as the music directors or the MDs, they need to know the heart of the pastor so that way we could take the vision and make it look how the pastor needed to look versus us doing our own thing. And like, well, no, I thought you said, no, I need to know exactly what you're saying because like I've been doing this for a long time. So I know how and what it takes to grow a music ministry because I've been doing this for so long. But giving or making sure the pastor understand who I am to put me in that position allows both of us to win.
Let me ask you this: so, what you think dictates for a pastor to be able to trust you as an MD? What dictates that? Like, how do you go? Like
relationship. Okay. I mean, talking not every day, but having a genuine relationship because like I need to know you and you need to know me, so that way we can be on the same page. And just reaching out, hey, what's going on? How you doing? And I know, we all busy and stuff like that, but I think that that's important. Like I said last week, I don't want to just. It becomes more than a job when I talk to you outside of business hours.
Yeah.
And if I can feel like I can call you and not just say like, hey man, well, you got my check. It don't have to be about money because I know your heart. Even if the check ain't there, I can say, well, I know he ain't like that, and I know this dude. He ain't gonna do me like that because I have a personal relationship with him. And I understand, this is just one of those times. And I feel like, we all deserve that one time where we drop the ball, and not be like, well, no, you always dropping the ball. But like I said, the relationship piece is very important. So that way we know who we're dealing with.
I think the Buster,
go ahead, Ray.
I think the getting to know each other, the lines have kind of got crossed with that because people sometimes pastors think, that if this is just a higher thing, then I ain't got to get to know you. I ain't got to have a relationship with you. I pay you to come play. I have a need. and you have a need, and we do this business deal, and we kind of put the relationship part on the side. I'm relational. I think we should build. I think things happen when it keeps you from building. But I think even if you're hired, you still got to build because we on the same team, on the same page. And I think that's what's been
All right,
missing.
I'm back. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can't see you.
Yeah.
We can't see
Yeah,
you.
I think there's two main areas, big areas, pastors have to really relate and pour in. That's music and children. So over those two areas, they can't just be there and do their part. Pastors should always continually be pouring what they want, how they want it, their vision, their heart to that person, and being able to receive from that person. Because here's the deal. I can have vision, but not the legs to run it. I know what I want, but I don't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the financial part comes in where, okay, I need this budget because I got to get somebody to make this happen. I know what I want. I know how I want it. I don't know how to do that. And I told you, I have been disconnected from like a lot of the music stuff. So I need to trust that guy like you do. You can get me some musicians or get this and make this happen. And that doesn't happen outside of relationship the way you need it to happen.
True.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm having
Apostle Reggie Royal.
We in here tonight, boy.
What's going on, family?
In here tonight.
What's happening?
What up, man?
We in here tonight. Hey, so I just wanted to say something right quick before we introduce Pastor Spencer. Pastor Reggie, I want to mention the way you and Trey have worked together. So you and Trey got that relationship because y'all been together through the Judah days, like over 20 years, 30 years. So Trey knows what you want, and Trey is able to convey that. But can you get that relationship with a hired musician? I don't know. Is that possible, do you think?
I think it's possible based on the heart part. Anything is possible if your heart is pliable.
Agreed.
You can jump in and know somebody a year and a half and have some real deep built. If both hearts are right. I think the heart thing is a big issue. I think we both sometimes approach each other based on what we've heard. You know, musicians approach pastors as if they're going to burn me, they're not going to have my money, they're bogus. And we approach musicians sometimes as, just want the check, they're going to mess with the women, this kind of deal. And we gotta live above that thinking level. We got to go above that and approach people for who they are, talk to them, build relationship. And I trust me, you know, your church will be better for it.
I want to let me jump in here. I've been having crazy issues on my end. I apologize.
We good, man. We just gonna keep it rolling for you, brother. We good.
I appreciate that. But
I know what I'm buying you for Christmas.
As you all can see, we have one of the preachingest preachers to ever live to join us tonight on the front line. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know and love him, Pastor Anthony Spencer. Welcome, my friend. Welcome.
Bless you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm honestly glad to have you on. And I'm going to, at this point, I'm going to put this on the screen. And I think you all were kind of touching on it already while I was working out these issues. I want to just drop this up here and you all can have at it. Again, we're listening to both sides tonight. We usually hear from the musicians, but now we're hearing it from the pastors' end as well. And Pastor Spencer, since you're on here now, I do want to start with you, and I want the musicians to follow behind you with this. What should a pastor expect from a musician who is a member as opposed to a musician who's hired, and vice versa? Because I believe that musicians ought to have expectations from the pastors that they work under too. So Pastor Spencer, talk about that.
Well, let me say this, and again, I'm late to the party, but my perspective, or from my perspective, I think there really shouldn't be a difference. I mean, there may be, as a result of membership, maybe a little more loyalty, but I feel if both are being paid, whether member or non-member, that the expectation ought to be the same. That whatever has been laid out in the description or the job description for the musician, member or not, they should give the loyalty, be on time, be on top of their craft, know exactly, what they're doing, all of the above.
All right. Pastor Whitney?
Yeah, so I was waiting on one of you guys to jump in.
Rob. Rob, you didn't talk yet, man. Go ahead, Rob.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think professionalism is professionalism. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, you're there to do a job, whether it's your pastor or whether it's your boss. Yeah, I think it's pretty, similar. I think when it's your pastor, I think it's important to get to know the pastor though, because that way you can kind of gauge the temperature of like what the relationship would be. Like Pastor Royal said, you'll know if you'll know how much grace to give that person because you actually know them. You know what I'm saying? Instead of just kind of like, well, he's like if he's late on a payment, you'll get your payment instead of like because he's a good person. You know what I'm saying? Outside of the pastor and the church, he's a stand-up guy. So I do think it's important that you get to know your pastor or your boss. I think it's the same, similar.
I think everything flows out of relationship. I think James mentioned it on the last call. I think everything flows out of that. When to be rigid, when to be flexible. You won't have so much schism around even just the money issue if you know the person that you're working with and they've been upfront with you. You're part of the team. We have staff meetings, so the musician head is at that table. They know what's going on. They know what's happening with the money. They know what the budgets are. They know what we can and can't do. And so we all kind of ride together. I think it becomes an issue when you don't know each other. And you can be in the church with somebody for a long time and not know them, play their instrument, sing their songs, but relationship drives everything. It drives everything. And I think pride has kept us from building those. It really has. Pride and other things. But I think if we endeavor to build that way, especially if you're a member of a church, especially if you've been in a place for a long time, even if you're not a member, but I've been here for like 8 years playing for Spencer, there should be some kind of relationship, some kind of deal. I think James mentioned about your family, your children. How are you? You have any needs, even needs that are above what I already pay you. What's going on with the person? That all comes out of relationship. It has to be built. It doesn't just happen. I think we have become accustomed in the Black church of calling everybody family, calling everybody covenant, and all that stuff is built over time. It's built over time. And out of that comes all the things that we both desire.
Can I chime in? I think that one a big error that we make is we mistake like having a relationship with our pastor as like commonality too. So that's kind of like where we go wrong. Even on the pastor side, like sometimes they may get common with the musician, and then that's when the late payments come and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a respect level too. You know what I'm saying? As men or as women, you still have to keep a level of respect for your leader and your employee.
Well, I agree with that. One thing I do know, though, is that in playing for one church for the last 16 years, and before that was at a church with the same pastor as my minister of music for 5 years, and before that at a church for 10 years, and before that at my home church until my mom and my pastor refused me to start playing at other churches. Loyalty is a very important part of this. And so I think you have to learn, like you're going to learn. It's growing pains with all of it. Any relationship has growing pains, and they have that time that you got to like begin that, hey man, we might not agree right here, but we're gonna agree right here. And so then you start to learn about each other as leader and minister of music or music director, or however you want to put it. And then I think it gets easier. So loyalty is a big thing too. I've had several opportunities to go play hundreds of places, but I am dedicated to my church because that is where God rooted me for that appointed time. So until God moves us into another place, that's where we're loyal to. So making sure that like the relationship between those two people are very important. And I am a member of my church. So to speak to the question on the table, I'm a member there. So of course, I know when we're hurting. I know when we're down. So I'll make concessions. I'm going to be honest. And my pastor doesn't mind me mentioning this. For the first 3 years of our church, I took no salary for the first 3 years because I wanted to make sure that the band was taken. I knew I needed that band, right? I knew I needed that energy. I know I needed that to start our church. So I didn't take any salary. Again, we were starting church at 2:30, and it allowed me to play. I don't know if Pastor Wiley is on here or not. Do y'all see if Pastor Wiley's on here? Pastor Wiley allowed me to play at his church in the mornings, and then I would go to Destiny in the afternoon. So Pastor Hat allowed me to come to church and play. So I had another income stream, and so I was able to make sure those other guys were blessed. So you make concessions due to the loyalty that you have to your church. This is the way I feel.
So let me jump in here real quick then. We're talking, I hear the member, I hear the members and the musicians in you talking. I'm talking about, and you all kept saying loyalty. What happens then if the musician is not a member? Does that person, if you musicians are hired for a job, does that require loyalty to that pastor?
Well, Rob
To your job.
I think it becomes more of a business related relationship when you're not a member.
You become loyal to what they hired you to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's if I needed a bass player and I only had this budget and he accepted that and he agreed to play at my 10 o'clock on Sunday and my 11 o'clock on Tuesday, then you're committed and loyal to that as long as I'm doing my end and he's doing his end. And now the relationship part comes in, even if it's business, but he knows me and he knows I'm on hard times right now. Something happened with the church and we have a talk, an understanding, and we roll with that. But if it's strictly business, I can't expect him to keep plucking his guitar and I'm not giving him his check. It's just not going to happen. Especially if I don't approach him properly discuss it with him. And I think that's been the problem. We don't know how to handle things because here's the thing. Let's just be honest. Some churches are weekly waiting on budget to be met. If it's met, there's a way to communicate with musicians when that happens. The reason musicians are kind of like y'all bogus because it's not being properly communicated. And I don't know what that is about people chasing me to get their money and calling me and texting me. We don't play those games. I know some people do. And sometimes we all get put in the same bucket, like all pastors burn me, so forth and so on. And I don't think that's cool to do. And even for those who are, in that spot or been in that spot, it's not a knock. It's just we got to handle our business better. And on the musician side, we got to handle the business better as well.
Marquita, when Pastor Reggie said that people don't have to chase him for money or whatever, and whatever else he says, something, it was like a light bulb went off on your head. What happened right there?
She
No,
be on
I'm
Channel
just,
9 News.
I understand where he's coming from. I know some churches do, like he said, have to wait every week to see if they're going to meet that weekly budget. And then some churches already know what's already set before them before they enter into the house that Sunday. You know what you got to pay out. I mean, I was just agreeing with my eyes.
Oh, okay. So I want to put this up here. And this, we kind of hit on it last week. And that was actually one of my questions that I was going to ask coming up. Pastor Marti says it's a job and there needs to be an understanding in the beginning. So I want to ask this question, and any of you can comment. I really want to hear from the pastors though too. Did we mess up, the church? Did we, the church, mess up when it became a job? When it became more of a job and less about, well, I won't say, because it's not less about ministry, but most people, even pastors do it, have started titling what they do in the church as a job. Did we miss it a little bit there, Pastor Spencer? Let me hear from you.
I don't really think we missed it. I think in many instances, and Pastor Reggie, I think, hit on it, it's our intentionality. When we bring in people, we've got to be clear in terms of what the expectations are. And also we got to stop hiring just out of desperation, that if necessary, we may have to go a week, 2, a month, until we can connect with someone. And of course, we know that there is no surefire way of hiring. There's some people get through the cracks, whatever. But you also need to make certain that you are vetting people. Call their references. Make certain that wherever they're coming from, or if they're still connected to a particular church, that they're in good standing with their church, so that you won't be bringing in unnecessary stress and problems to you. Because again, whether it's a member or a person that's hired, I think the expectation should be the same. We as pastors, as well as musicians, have to stop making assumptions and talk. Pastor Reggie hit it. That's where the relationship comes in. Now, that may not mean the relationship with this musician may not be the same with the previous one. So we gotta understand those boundaries, those limits, but there still should be a level of connection to where everyone understands what's going on, whether it's from them being paid on time or if there are issues with the pay. I'm very open and honest with those that serve our ministry, whether member or non, because I want them to know that I'm not trying to get over on them. I want them to know that if they're serving our ministry, again, whether member or a non-member, I appreciate them being there. I value them, I honor them, and I'm not there to take advantage. And I know many have on both sides. Pastors have been taken advantage of, musicians have been taken advantage of, and I think oftentimes we operate going forward with that same mindset. We've got to take it on a case-by-case basis. We can't treat everybody the same, whether pastor or musician. We got to be open, but we got to be willing to share that up front.
I want to stop you right there. I do want to say this. First of all, those of you that are watching, you need to share this video, because my panel is actually about to expand within the next couple of minutes. We bring it in more. We're bringing a couple more in, because man, these are talks, Pastor Reggie, that we do not talk about, and we should talk about. This is why we have, I believe, we have so many disgruntled musicians. We have a lot of disgruntled pastors because of musicians. You know what I'm saying? And then everybody get mad, and then they fire you, or the musician quit, when I think, and it goes back to what you guys were saying, relationship is important in this. And you got to remember, let's everybody remember, we talking money. And you guys, I don't know about everybody on the musician side here, but I know James have made it clear that this is what he does. This is how he takes care of his family. So he can't, you know what I'm saying? He can't go with, hey, we short on the budget. You see what I'm saying? So I think that Pastor Reggie, you help me out. I think that there could be maybe an integrity issue in a lot of these cases, whether it be on the pastor's end or the musician's end.
It could be on both.
It could be on both, but I don't think that's like the weight of it. I think there's very few pastors who say, "Come play for me," and already have the natural intention, I'm not going to pay you. I'm going to do you bogus. I think anybody does that. I just think it's like Spencer just said, we got to try to have the talks when things happen. Chris has been with me for 25 years. This is a relational piece.
Wow.
There's been times in our church when budget changed, and I would go to Chris and say, hey, we got to pull you back for about 6 months. And we rolled with it. And I hated to have to do that, but this is the part that sometimes musicians don't understand. There's budgets, there's all kinds of things in organizations, and we have to be a good steward. So it's not a matter of when something has to be pulled back, it goes to the musician. We like going to the soundboard, we just pulled everything back from my cell phone down, and I had to have those conversations. Hey, we got to pull back for 6 months. We got to do this, that, and the other, and then we'll get you back where you were and even take you further. But we have those conversations. And this was a couple of years ago, but he was like, cool, and we kept moving. It wasn't, man, they doing me wrong. I need another church to play for. And I hated to do it. I don't know if that's his full livelihood, but that's what he's been getting forever. That's what we do with him. So it's about relationship. And when things go not wrong, but when there's adjustments that have to be made, we got to have the talk. I think pastors should have those talks. Don't send your guy out there to have those talks. Don't send missionary Little out there to have the talk with the guys while they're waiting. You go have that talk and build that relationship if you haven't already done it. I think that's where the issue comes in.
I want to ask the musicians.
You know what? Pastor Reggie made it clear that nobody's waiting for checks at his church, though. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Like, nobody's going around going like, are we gonna get our money today? That's not the case. So it depending on how you're running your ministry, that's when again the CFOs are in charge, or whoever's running finance, if it's head deacon, whatever it is. Those are important spaces for people to be in, and for that integrity to then shine through in those spaces. I think that's important too. Because if you don't have that, then you have a problem.
Let me also add, because I know I mentioned about vetting the musicians. Musicians need to vet the pastor. You need to know before you go in what is his or her track record with other musicians, so that you won't have an expectation of whatever was promised to you, and then come that Sunday, like you said, you sit around. I think that's one of the worst things in the world is to have anyone, not just musicians, anyone that's supposed to be paid, sitting around waiting on, like that's horrible. And so I think we have to make certain that we're not biting off more than we can chew, trying to say we got this person playing for us. And again, the musicians also have to do their due diligence of making certain that they do their homework on whoever it is that they're intending to play for, so they won't be frustrated coming into something that they were blind to.
Agreed. Yeah.
Hey, Pastor Will, you got some headphones?
Hey, Rob. Hey, come on, man.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Marquita.
I have a question since we have pastors on the line. So when you're hiring musicians, because I know a lot of times musicians, they'll trash talk pastors when they've been burned, especially in the city of Chicago. When you all hire musicians, do you require references? Or do you just hire who's the most popular musician in the city at the time?
I think for me, again, I'm kind of removed from that. I put all the weight and trust on who's ever leading the music department in our church. So if we need a bass player, and they say I got a guy, I'm trusting him to be bringing in the right guy that knows, the deal, that's going to do what they're supposed to do, that fits within the budget. I have a relationship with that, with everybody in our church in terms of our band. But if you're new coming in and you're like hired, I may not have a lot of relationship with you. It's like a speaking thing, because I got you through whoever the MD or whatever was. It's like a guy at our church now. He just started. His name is Cam Lowe. Great guy.
Bless you. Cam Lowe.
He's been there for like maybe a month.
Wendell Lowe is on here, and that's his nephew.
I know. He's amazing, but I've never officially met him. I've spoken to him in service, but I trust the leader who brought him in to say he's cool. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I don't usually go with the whole reference thing and all that. I just trust the guy who's leading the music department.
Yeah. With me, it's somewhat similar. My son is over our music department, but just so happens most of the people, if not all the people that he's ever brought to me, I've already known or had some sort of relationship with them, and so it was easier to make that transition of them becoming a part of the ministry. Because and even with that, I mean, there were some that I talked to my son like, okay, so that's who you brought in, and that's how you gonna let that ride, and so you ain't gonna say nothing to him, that whole deal. But yeah, for the most part, everybody that he's brought to me has been on point. Pastor Zone.
Hey, hold on. Let me put my laptop on my TV because there ain't enough room on my laptop. Hold on.
That's relationship right there. Relationship.
That's relationship.
Marquita, did it answer your question?
Yeah, it answered it. I just asked because I know a lot of times, while we're talking about relationship building, the reason why there's sometimes a rift between musicians and pastors is because you don't know their history before they got to you. And usually the reason why they're available for hire is for a reason. They've either been fired, or they left because of whatever, reason they had. And I feel like a lot of times we don't get reference checks, but we always want to check and see if the pastors are going to meet up to make sure their check is ready every week and stuff like that. So I asked, do you all do reference checks? I personally don't mind sending in a resume when I get asked to come and play for a ministry. That's fine because all my references are going to check out.
Come on,
that's
here.
not everybody's case.
Right.
And it has a lot to do with integrity and character. That's why I asked.
Got you. That's good. That's good. Is that you, Pastor Willie?
Yeah.
I think that's you, man.
Before I read that comment, everybody, ladies and gentlemen.
This is so.
Yeah, last week he said he was working off of the HP. So that's probably.
James, are you crying, man? Are you crying?
Rob, you're not giving no praise, bro.
Yeah, we gotta do something.
Pastor Willie, you got these people crying over here, man.
Okay, they're weeping and wailing. Name the music.
I want to look at this.
Is that your phone or your computer?
Yeah, he got a shortage in his mic.
Yeah, you
Hey, y'all remember back in the day when the mic would get a shortage, you had to pull up on the floor.
Okay.
Oh my God.
You're not gonna let us down, Pastor Willie.
We do things in excellence now. We can't be. Okay,
Yeah.
Pastor Will.
Look at this comment.
Pastor, come back in, man.
You gotta go back to the other spot. You said you ain't getting no service in this spot. You gotta go back to the other one.
James, Alonzo, why don't you speak so Pastor Will get his audio straight? Back that way, Will. The other way.
You gotta go back to the other spot. Where you at?
Alonzo, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, all I gotta say is this: I came into what Marquita
Hey, that's
said.
mute. That's mute for now, though.
Yeah, mute. Pastor Will. Oh God.
Okay.
Just mute. Just come on. Yeah. Thank you. Go
Y'all
ahead.
hear me?
Yeah. Not really. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, pertaining to what Marquita said, I definitely have to ask for references here in this area, but it's not the same if you go anywhere else, like a major city. Unfortunately, I'm in a country town, and so I have to find out who you played for find out whether you've been playing on the wooden piano, if you even familiar with keyboards and organs even and all that other stuff. So definitely depending on the demographic of where you are and the resources that are available in that place, then you would definitely have to ask for references. Here, unfortunately, we don't have a way to check those type of references because people have been playing for their churches for 500 years. And they stay horrible and they learn from the same horrible people. But in Chicago, because things are so competitive, people are going to kind of be on their A game when they're auditioning or applying for certain ministries of a certain caliber. You're not just going to walk in Lifeline or Pastor Spencer's church and you just half step it. You know, the person who ain't even played a motif is not going to even put an application in. So that's all I got to say to that.
Okay. You got anything to say about the other subjects that we were talking about, Pastor Zoe?
I came late to church, so what is it that
we were talking about
related to?
We were talking about the relationship between the pastor and the musician. But I think,
okay. I don't believe that there necessarily has to be an ironclad relationship between the musician and the pastor. I do think that a lot of times us as pastors come from a place of privilege. And a lot of times we have this Alexander the Great mentality that assumes that we know best and we may not be musicians. So I commend pastors who know how to step aside relating to music and let someone who is well versed in their ministry handle that. But I don't think that a pastor has to necessarily have a tight relationship with the musician. The musician has to be elastic and has to be adaptable, but he does not have to have a relationship with the senior pastor in order to be effective in pushing ministry forward. That's a privilege. A relationship with anybody is a privilege and not necessarily a right.
Okay, and we're talking about so that's just a regular musician. What about the MD, who's kind of the, I hate to use the pun, but lifeline of the church? The MD knows what a church might need. The MD knows how a church flows, and so of course you want that person, even though he's just playing, but he's the MD and running the show. He's on the microphone. Not everybody got a doggone microphone in any of everybody trying to get me to do that. It gets on my nerves. But that person, what about that person's spirit? What is the
question?
Yeah.
That person does need to have a relationship with the pastor, but relationship is an umbrella term in itself. Okay. And so in the Black church, a lot of times, because we're such a community, we assume that relationship means friends, and it don't. A lot of times in the church, pastors are guilty of iniquity. If you pay attention to scripture, one of the words for sin is iniquity. That's a breaking of trust. Most of the time, it ain't the musicians that's breaking trust. It's the pastor. Okay, from my experience. And so many times, because there has been a breaking of trust between the musician or MD and the pastor, now that limits the relationship or friendship that would exist. I'll say this, that relationship being an umbrella term, there has to be a functional and transactional relationship, but not necessarily one that is affectionate. We don't got to be friends, but do I understand the heartbeat of this ministry? Because you get people who are not necessarily tight with one another. I mean, look at musicians who play an MD for large artists. They don't necessarily all the time have a seat at the table on Thanksgiving, but they understand the heartbeat of that specific ministry. I think that a lot of times the lines get blurred in the Black church, specifically relating to what relationship should actually look like in order to yield results. We ain't got to be buddy to have relationship and push this ministry forward. But we do have to have trust. And unfortunately, many pastors in our communities have committed iniquity. They've broken trust with musicians. And because they're the ones with the captive audience.
How so? If a musician is not coming to church on time, that's breaking trust too. And we hear about that all the time.
Okay.
So
100%.
So I mean, I want to give the pastors some grace here. The musicians, we've been bogus sometimes too, and we still expect the same type of grace. Now, so I'm just saying, I don't think it's always on the pastor that has broken the trust. And in what instances do you believe pastors have broken trust?
Okay, excellent question. Number one instance where pastors have broken trust, if they've used their audience in order to cover up their own lack of stewardship and management. That's one thing that that pastors do, because the captive audience doesn't belong to the musician or the MD. The captive audience belongs to the pastor. And so most of the time when you see pastors who break trust, they're doing it on a scale that a musician could never. So yes, a musician is human. He'll mess up and need a little bit of grace. And yes, there are bogus musicians out there. But the truth is, we see pastors who will utilize their platform in order to demonize certain people who have come up short in business deals, specifically because of their pride. Okay? That pulpit thing is a mighty wonder if you let it take you somewhere where you don't need to go. And so relating to pulpit ministry, it gets very difficult when you have a leader who continues to come up short, continues to like y'all been saying, not pay they live in what the song says, check to check in part-time Mississippi. The church budget is predicated solely upon this Sunday's offering, not even last Sunday. That's a breaking of trust, because that tells me that the pastor himself is overextended. That's a matter of stewardship. If you cannot live check to check at your house, then the church can't live from offering to offering. You see what I'm saying? And so
what you say, Pastor Red?
I think you're muted, Pastor.
I said that's a whole nother call.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. Absolutely.
But I do want to. You mentioned something about the breaking of trust and which is big. How do we recover from that? Once there's been breaking of trust or falling out, or we don't see each other, I don't see musicians a certain way, or they don't see pastors the right way. How do we begin to fix that?
James,
I think that's important.
I think first we have to realize the hurt that we've caused. We got to understand that it was something caused. We have to deal with that. So if let's say Buster was a pastor and I played at his church and he did me wrong, and the reason why I'm not there anymore because of lack of trust or whatever, you said that you was going to do something you didn't do. I think that, it should be, hey man, hey, I messed up, and I messed up, and how can we fix this? Because at the end of the day, this is kingdom business. That's supposed to be built around that, but it becomes not about kingdom business when we don't handle the man first. Like, let's handle us first, and then we'll deal with everything else. But if we can't handle this, that'll never be fixed. Like, if I wronged you, you should say, hey, bro, hey, I didn't like how you did that. That's how we deal with it, by confronting the issue and dealing with it. And be men, number one. And if we can't, or women, and if we can't deal with it, then it'll never be fixed. And like I said last week, I've not now, but I've encountered pastors in the past where I don't really want to play at church no more because of it was hurt. And I'm a loyal dude, and I felt like I'm loyal to you, be loyal to me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm okay with us taking a pay cut. Just be upfront with me. Don't just tell me, oh yeah, Doc, we taking it. No. Oh, you're not gonna do that to me. Let's talk about this. And if I know a relationship, if I know you, then I can say, oh, it's cool, Pastor. We good. You know what I'm saying? But you ain't finna just tell me out of just where we at and expect me to just be with you when I don't really know you. But to fix all this, I just think relationship is key.
I think it's really big on relationship, James. It seems like you really really big on
Yeah.
knowing
Yeah.
who's leading you. Is that what you're saying?
But I think that's overall. He said to fix the problem, we have to first identify the issue or what a breaking point, like what happened. So us identifying what happened, and what happened was you hurt me, and now word around the street is that you ain't integral. So now that's the thing. So we have to kill that before it becomes a thing, and let's be men.
I think that's right. That's right on target. But there's multiple cases with pastors and musicians that see each other different. I first understand, in most cases, hurt is not intentional. And second, hurt has reciprocity, which means one thing that keeps people from coming back together to talk is because they both feel like they're the only ones that have been hurt. And so the pride keeps them in their corner. I think we gotta be, somebody said, be men or be women. That's tough in our culture sometimes. We talk, but to the wrong people. We vent, but to the wrong people. And then the person we need to be talking to get the resolve with, they get it last, they get a third party. Now it's a bigger mess. Hurt is real in the body. It's real among musicians. It's real among pastors. It's real among pastors and members. But it also has reciprocity. And us learning to talk with somebody, it's something we all have to learn individually. We just don't, we struggle with that. We really do. One of the things that I love about, Buster mentioned Clyde, who's been with me for a long time. We learn at Living Word how to have the hard conversations. And so a lot of the hard conversations he has to have because he's the operations director, but he has them. And I said hard because they're tough to have, especially if you're in a relationship with somebody. You have to go outside of kicking it and having pizza to talk about something that's really, deep or important. They're tough to have, but you got to learn how to have them. And I think when you're a relational guy and these things break down, it's hard to turn them back around because pride gets in there and we're expecting certain things that we're never going to get, and we never get to this place we want to get to relationally. That's why I asked, we could talk about it all night, but how do we fix it? How do we fix these things?
Pastor Spencer, do you have any thing that you want to add to how can we fix that?
I mean, we've really been nailing it all night. Is having those conversations. I know with, of course, we've been in this pandemic for 9 months now, I think. And early on in it, I had conversation to say, listen, because I understand with a lot of musicians in the Black church, this is what they do. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted it to be clear. I'm not trying to just, cut the faucet off altogether, but we got to take it down to a slow drip. And so this is what we're able to do, until, we see things, turn. And it was difficult to have, but it was necessary because two things. I wanted to give those that were serving our ministry the opportunity to say, okay, I'm cool with that, or I need to go do something else, and maybe we can come back, once everything turns, versus me just not saying anything, shutting everything down, and so now there's a bit of taste in their mouth concerning me. And of course, Pastor Reggie hit it earlier. In instances like that, we're all bunched, into the same group. And so now they won't just be mad with me. They're gonna be mad with the next pastor they're gonna interview with, and I think he or she is gonna do the same thing. So I think we as pastors, even though we do delegate and need to delegate responsibility to the MD and others, there are some conversations we definitely need to have so that people will understand where our heart is. Again, Pastor Reggie hit the nail on the head. Where our heart is. So again, they'll know and understand. We're not trying to manipulate, take advantage of them. This is just where things are. Whether it's going to be like that forever, all of that needs to be laid out. What's the time frame that you think it's going to be like it is, or whatever the adjustment that needs to be made, so that everybody will have an understanding.
And these conversations help us have, like James is sharing his heart. I've never really talked with Rob, but it helps us have a considerate and intelligent approach to one another. Because I think that's missing as well. Intelligent meaning I now know something about Rob. I know his background, where he's come from. I know how he thinks as a musician, what he expects. I know, James is a relational guy. So we approach each other now differently, as opposed to what we've heard or what we assume or what we think. But sometimes we ain't heard nothing. We just give everybody the same thing. Give every pastor the same blanket, thought, or the musicians the same blanket thought approach. But this allows us, it allows me to have a considerate and intelligent approach to the guys that we're all on the same team with. Whether you work at church A or I pastor at church B, it's one team. I think we forget that just like it's one body, it's one team, one goal, and this gives, it helps. It really helps to consider an intelligent approach.
I think another thing, I don't think this is an issue at this point.
We got a lot of good comments coming in.
Go ahead.
Yeah. We can't hear you, Will. We can't hear you at all. I think Wendell Lowe has some amazing comments, and Pastor William Martin. So we're getting. Don't forget, Wendell Lowe was a pastor at the time, and he also serves with Pastor Rod Parsley in Ohio, making probably millions of dollars out there. But and Pastor William Martin is a pastor on the west side of Chicago. He's saying when pastors learn how to be a blessing, they won't get so caught up into the money game. We all should be a blessing. The ministry of God, bless, not take it. I think he's trying to say advantage of each other. So I don't think that musicians are out to take advantage. Let me say that. And I think what's happening is we're starting to box ministry into a check, and I really want to get away from that. I believe that is a bad mistake for us to box ministry into a check. Now it's starting to turn into like, yeah, you treat me both because you ain't pay me right about the money, or no, you ain't been here on time, or you ain't played for so long, and Corona happened, so I got to cut your check. I think it's so much more. Wendell is dropping gems in this boy. Spiritual insight, intimacy, or into me. He's so preacherish. Musicians have issues, and spiritual needs are the beginning to repairing these breaches. I totally agree. At one point, Sheree Reed had a Bible study where the musicians would come together, and just like on a Monday after serving all day on Sunday, we would come in and just sit down and have a Bible study with just like minds. It was funny to see musicians walking in with their Bibles, and it was really a time for us to get poured into. It was a time for us to share. A lot of us were having serious relationship issues with their girlfriends, their wives, their children, and they were able to share those things. And so for a pastor and a musician's relationship, I do believe that you should be getting poured into. Now let's talk about that, because I believe if you at a church and you're not being poured into, you are wasting a lot of time as well, paid or not. So what y'all want to say about that?
Wow.
I want to speak on that, actually. If I may, I love the insight that you, Buster, and Pastor Lowe in the comments have been given. And I think to rope in what Pastor Reggie was saying concerning how do we repair what has been broken, the trust has been broken. First and foremost, we have to stop assuming that there's maturity on both sides. Pastoring don't make you mature, and being a musician don't make you mature, but we all assume that people are of a certain maturity level, specifically because of the position they hold and because of the talent that they have. So how do we fix it? We have to begin, concerning the pouring out, we have to begin to stop compartmentalizing the church to not just a check on Sunday, but stop compartmentalizing the worship experience to what church ministry is. Okay? That's first and foremost. Number two, concerning the individual, whether it's pastor or musician, we all have an IQ, which is our intelligence quotient or intellectual quotient, but we also have an EQ, which is emotional quotient, and an AQ, which is the adaptability quotient. You have people who are extremely intellectual, but they have a low emotional quotient. Their emotional meter is extremely
My
low.
Lord,
And
Jesus.
then you have people who are extremely emotionally intelligent and extremely intellectual, but they are not adaptive. Okay. If you know anything about the business of people, the business of people forces you to have to be adaptive. And so us as pastors, we have to be pouring into people out of biblical principles surrounding building the EQ, which is emotional quotient, the AQ, which is adaptability quotient, and the IQ, which consequently is the intelligence quotient. Because we're speaking to the intelligence or the intellect of people, but we're not building them emotionally. See, we want to give them a sensation emotionally, but we don't want to bring them from one emotional destination to another emotional destination. If you only grow intellectually in church, we've done you a disservice. But unfortunately, we started churches, we bought 50 chairs, we paid rent at a building, and we got a musician, and that's what we called ministry. So we all have contributed and been complicit in compartmentalizing church or ministry to the worship expression and not the actual practical needs of the person. So how do we fix it? We fix it by all becoming, as Pastor Wendell said, intimate. Into me, I see. We have to become more self-aware. So I have to ask the pastors and the musicians, how introspective are you? How introspective are you? You can
That's
always
good.
describe the behavior of someone else, but how well do you look at where you are? And will pastors and musicians admit where they are? That's where the bridge begins to be built, because you'll recognize then that all of us are dealing with the same stuff. That's all I got to say about that specific point.
Well, yeah, you said a lot, and man, listen, it's a lot of people come. Wendell, hey, somebody, I wish I could get Wendell on this stream, y'all. He just won't get on. Pastor Will, we cannot hear you, so I don't know what you got to do to fix that. I'm just trying to keep it rolling, bro, while you fixing that. And we're not gonna be too much longer because this could be a 2-hour conversation, and it probably would be. But listen. Pastor Zoe, I understand that because I've had to look at the inside of me and see where I have been lacking as a minister of music and as a person. Now, all them EQs and IQs and all them things that you talked about, I don't know where I fit in those. So now I gotta go back and
you gotta find it.
I gotta find it, and I think that's important for you to know about yourself before you walk into a situation. Sometimes if you're not secure in yourself, or sometimes you're too over secure about yourself, you can mess up yourself walking into a situation. So I think even as musicians, sometimes we be like, man, I can handle it, bro. I've been playing for blah, blah, blah. I've been in Europe. I've been in blah, blah, blah. And then, but when it comes down to your business acumen, when it comes down to your intelligence level, when it comes down to whether or not you're ready to receive a word or receive a check, then that's when we still got like some issues. So we got to all, and then of course the pastors had a thing. Cause I'm telling you, pastor, like you said, that pulpit is a thing. It will make you become a thing. It will make you act a thing. And Pastor Spencer, go ahead. And then I want Marquita and Rob to talk too. I want Marquita and Rob to talk.
No, you guys are hitting it.
Talking. Y'all mute when others are talking.
Y'all are hitting it. I think that this is calling for us, definitely as pastors, to make some adjustments in how we lead, not in terms of the music department, but even in other areas. And unfortunately, pride prohibits that for many of our fellow pulpiteers. It's like they've learned a certain way to operate and function, depending on the culture that they were raised under, denomination or what have you, or their counterparts. And so if one has operated a certain way, they've gleaned that from them. We had a season where people were just swapping musicians. If one was getting paid a certain amount, then pastor down the street paid him $5 extra. And so I think we've got to get to that place. Pastor Zoe was nailing it. We've got to get to that place where we look at ourselves and understand our limitations. As pastors, we have to remember that we don't know everything. We are not everything, and understanding that's why we've got people around us. That's why we've got ministers of music. That's why we have people serving in certain areas, because they help us with our blind spots. They help to shore up our weaker strengths, as Lady Sarita Jakes will call them. And so we've got to be open and honest about that and be willing to express that, so people know we're not supermen and superwomen. You know, the anointing makes it look like what we do is effortless, but the reality is, if not for the grace of God, I mean, none of us will be able to do what we do.
Marquita and Rob, do y'all want to say something?
I mean, I feel like we didn't beat this this subject to the ground. Everybody can say everything.
I got you, Marquita. Go ahead. You want to say something about it?
I think that Pastor Zoe talked about making sure that we meet the needs of the individual, the musicians, from a pastor perspective too. So my question is, where does accountability play factor? Do we hold our musicians who are members more accountable than we hold hired musicians, or is it an equal level of accountability?
Great question. Great question, Pastor Spencer or Pastor Reggie.
When you say accountability, meaning pastoring them and having certain spiritual expectations of them?
Yeah.
I think it's there's two people that's hard to pastor. That's musicians and other pastors. And I think for me, I only pastor those who allow me to pastor them. So I don't have any spiritual expectations outside of what we teach at the local church, but I think every man should govern themselves according to the word for their own life. But yeah, if you want to be pastored, I can pastor you. We can do the accountability thing and check in and all of that. But if you don't, then praise God. But I just, it's tough trying to pastor people or chase people to pastor them. That's my perspective of it. And so whether you are hired or not, if you consider me your pastor to your church and you submit to being pastored, then you can be pastored. If not, work it out. I know it sounds harsh, but that's a reality for most pastors. We chase people to pastor them sometimes, and I don't want to do that.
That's good. That's good.
Have we over spiritualized the concept of accountability?
So what,
Speaking
Zoe?
for the local church.
Marquita was speaking. I don't want to interrupt the lady.
Go ahead, Marquita.
I'm only asking because I know that the music ministry usually serves as the face of the ministry as a whole. And so I know that sometimes the musicians live very raggedy lives outside of our jobs. That's why I asked, is there more of a higher accountability factor where we're actually members of your church, or is it the same level that you expect a person to carry themselves outside of the building too, where they're just hired?
I think if you're saved and you're in anybody's church, you should try to govern yourself again according to the word. I think a pastor's job ultimately is to teach the word, model the word, and then pray for those that are under their care. I can't make anybody do anything. Because I don't want to get legalistic. I don't want to get rigid and say, if you do this, you can't play Sunday. I really don't get into that, because that starts something that you're not going to be able to stop within your church with everybody. I would that everybody, including myself, would daily work to bring my life in harmony with God's word. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen with all of us. We're all on this journey to bring our lives in harmony. It's kind of like when I learned how to ride a bike. My dad took me out, and even when I took the training wheels off and I started to go, he still held his hand on the cuff of my seat when I was riding. I think as we grow into this Christian walk, we always want to keep God's hand on the cuff of our seat.
Mm.
And we teach that and hope people govern themselves accordingly. I hope I'm answering your question, Marquita, but I don't get into, putting that stuff on musicians. I just, or any member for that matter. I want you to get the word, not just the word. Let the word display its activity in your living, and you grow in your God likeness and your Christ likeness. I don't need to be a part of that in terms of making you do something, setting up rules, all of that. I don't get into that. If you choose not to walk accordingly, the fruit of your life will show. You don't need my rule to help you do that. As a musician or singer or dancer or usher, we teach the word, we model the word, and we pray for those that are under our care. And my pastor does the same for me, and he tells me the same thing. And I got to keep my life in order and keep my walk in order. And I think it pushes everybody to want to grow, as opposed to being told what to do so I can get my check or I can serve in this particular ministry. If that makes sense.
Pastor Lowe, Zoe, I know you wanted to say something, but I want to hear from Pastor Lowe. Pastor Wendell Lowe. Hey, now listen, let me say this to y'all. This is my musical mentor. Okay, so for years and years and years, I would sit in the balcony of Progressive on 13th Avenue and wish one day I could play like him or with him. And I've had both of those opportunities, and he's been able to pour into my life musically and spiritually, and also he's played on a couple of my albums and stuff. Y'all welcome Pastor Wendell Lowe to us to this panel tonight, y'all. Please.
Thank you. Grace and peace, everybody. Sorry I'm on here late. Can y'all hear me?
Going on around here tonight. A lot of grace and peace.
We need much of it.
We need it, yes, sir.
I was trying to type as much as I could. I didn't see the invitation, but one thing I've learned and observed is that when I said to the intimacy, God gives the shepherd of that house the ability to see into the lives of everyone that walked through the corridors of that church. That pastor is ultimately responsible for everything that happens, good, bad, or indifferent, in that church, because that man or that woman is the said angel of the house. So if they bring a musician in, if the young man or young lady's grown, then they should be responsible enough to tell that pastor, I am a member of a certain church. Pastor so-and-so is my pastor. I have a covering, but as long as I'm serving here and receiving the word while I'm serving, I'm looking to grow. That's good. If that doesn't happen, then I think the pastor should say to that musician, are you covered? Do you need anything? How are you spiritually? How are you? Take the temperature of that person, because everybody that says that they are good are not good. And a lot of musicians play through their hurt, play through the pain, play through the frustration, and they cover it up because nobody thought enough to come to them and ask. And so there's been a lot of frustrated musicians saying, you want me to play for you. You only love me because of what I can do for you, but you ain't really loving me. And so I think the initiative should start with the pastor. It's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, the chicken came first, right? Then the egg. So which came first, the shepherd or the sheep? Well, the shepherd. Because no baby comes in the world and says, I want you to be my dad. I want you to be my mom. It is the mom and the dad that chooses initially what happens first. And so with the pastors that are on here, respectfully, I say you should make the first step in looking into that musician. Because nowadays, and I'll say this in closing, there's a really deep sensitivity in the spirit as to a lot of how pastors are moving, and they need musicians to be just as sensitive in the spirit. That's going to enhance the worship experience of those who are coming to church to worship, those who are watching online. You got to be in sync. And so, yeah, references are essential. very important. Yes, relationship, very important. But most important, being able to sense in the spirit, not just gift, but spirituality. Those are my 2 cents.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So our host tonight wants us to focus in on this last subject, and then we're going to be done for the night. So then, what do you do when a musician is openly, I believe the word here is going to be openly, and I want to deal with that word so bad, openly living a sinful life? Do you continue to let them play for you? So then, what do you do when a musician is openly living anybody know anything about Daryl Wall? Living a sinful life. Did somebody hang up on me? Oh, a lot of y'all did. Do you continue to let them play for you or worship over you or sing songs or cut records or get on the piano on Instagram and still sing the songs of the Lord with no shame? Do you do that still with a openly sinful life? Now, mind you, to me, sin is sin. So let me not put a label on a certain sin. I'm talking about openly living in sin, as Brother Jeremy said.
So I think.
Can I hear from the musician? Pastor? And then we're going to hear from you, because I want to see what the musicians think about this. Hello, guys. You got something to say?
Can I say something before the musicians come in? No. I'm not gonna give my response. I'm not gonna give my response. What I wanted to say is, if we're gonna be mindful of the time, this question is gonna take us to 11:30. Exactly, I'm telling you this. So I just want us to understand that. Whatever comments are coming, we're gonna mess around and be here at 11:30. Go ahead.
10 o'clock is it. I promise. Let's be done at 10.
I personally think the strongest word in that sentence is openly. I mean, we all struggle with whatever our thing is, but we ain't wearing it on our back. Like, you can't tell a liar until they open their mouth. You know what I'm saying? You can't tell a thief until you see something that ain't theirs in their hand. I mean, and then we don't even know if it's theirs until somebody's saying, like, he got my such and such. So I don't think that if you openly doing it now, you bogus. You out of order. Period. And you bogus. And I feel like
on Instagram, Facebook, and you having drinks and you smoking cigars and you got all the girls on you dancing on you and all that stuff. Is that appropriate? Is that sin? First of all.
Yeah, it is, because my platform then becomes yours. So if you're the pastor, I represent you wherever I go. And not only that, I represent Jesus wherever I go. So I'm very particular on what I post on my own social media because of the artists that I play for. I gotta I gotta respect everybody that I'm a part of, because it's no longer my platform. And if I can't understand that, then I shouldn't have a platform.
We got pastors on here talking crazy. Listen, Pastor Martin is not gonna play with you. He got the Holy Ghost for real. He said you get rid of and you start using crack. Pastor Martin,
back out now.
Pastor Martin, why you throwing away the young man? Now where's the pour into, Pastor? Where to pour into? You can't get rid of them and stuff, but you gonna turn the track on. You gonna call C-Dub. Well, I want to know. I want to know, what can you do to bring that young man in and tell him to maybe reconsider how he's living his life? And that's like Pastor Reggie said. Keep God's hand on the back of that bike with that young man. You might be God's hand for that young man. So you can't just throw him away and let your hand go and that boy just fall off that bike. Somebody got to be able to pour into him. I just want to say that right quick.
Buster. Oh, go ahead, Pastor Reggie.
No, go ahead, because you want to hear from the musicians first.
Back in the day,
I can't see y'all no more.
I'm sorry.
I can't see him no more. Dad wrote a book.
Yeah, I believe.
Go ahead, Rob.
What'd you say? Oh no, I mean I believe that they should be held accountable if they sin openly. Now I don't know what that accountability is. Yeah, I mean I guess that varies on whoever their boss is, but I do think that they should be held
being so
accountable
messy on his Facebook.
for the
Not just a musician, but what about the pastor? Lord have mercy, Jesus. Who holds the pastor accountable? Let's keep it moving. Let's go with
So
Pastor.
let me speak again because I know Buster said something about musicians. But
Go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
so I guess for me, the question always comes up: if we're living these openly sinful lives, how is that handled? But as the musician that's supposed to be saved and serving in ministry, do we stop ourselves from serving? Will we know that we're openly living these sinful lives? So I can use myself as an example because clearly, I mean, everybody that knows me knows I have 2 children, and I've never been married. Now, when I was pregnant with my daughter, you know, I play for my home church, and my uncle is the pastor. And one thing he said to me is, you know, I'm not going to fire you because you're pregnant out of wedlock, but it was a choice for me if I wanted to sit myself down. Now, when I got pregnant with my son, I was still playing for the churches. I mean, it's my way of living. It's how I pay my bill. But I did take a step back from ministry. And if you know me, I fought the state for 3 full years. After I got pregnant with my son, it was conviction. I mean, because you know right from wrong. And it doesn't mean I was out here openly doing it because nobody knew I had a baby after he was born. And so, but my thing is, as a musician, do we hold ourselves accountable? If we're living these openly sinful lives, we know we're living these openly sinful lives. Do we just keep going every Sunday and sit down and tainting these services with our own demons, or do we take our own selves and sit back for a second too? And a sabbatical is in place, because I believe in sabbaticals.
But I think that's the point of us going to the house to make sure that we, you know, give that self-evaluation to make sure that we're trying to live a life. I think that's what Christianity is, right? Because nobody is perfect. So even if you are serving whatever, we all gonna fall short. That's what grace is for. So I think, like, even if I chose to set myself down because I'm bogus, that's the case. I'm gonna keep setting myself down because I have, you know, we all got that thing. You know what I'm saying? Whatever that, you know, whether it's anger, you don't know how to talk to people, you know, whatever. We're gonna keep sitting ourselves. Now I'm gonna relax this week, and they're gonna say, all right, hey nigga, you need to pick it up. Like, this ain't finna. Don't make a pallet. Don't make a pallet. Get your pallet up. Let's go. Don't make it a pallet. You know what I'm saying? That's the case. So I think if we just decided to want to set ourselves down every week, we all be set down every week because we all be bogus. Just being honest.
I think that the original question on the screen was, if they're openly doing something, would you allow them to keep serving in ministry?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think you go Galatians 6, where you have to work through the restoration process, but I think it looks different for everybody based on the leading of the Lord. And like Buster was saying, some people, based on your talk and how you approach them, how they approach you, they may need to be set down for a second. They may not need to be set down. I think it's a per case basis. I've dealt with it all, from pastors to lay people or whatever. And I think because we're in the age now where there's multiple definitions of what open sin is.
Mm.
And you can go to the Bible and prove your point, and I can prove my point. There are people now that teach because of grace where you can drink and you can smoke and you can do these things. And so if we get into that, we'll be on here all night, and you'll have a plethora of perspectives and all of that. Like she just said, she got pregnant out of wedlock, but she set herself down. The pastor didn't choose to sit her down. There are different cases for different people in different houses, but I think ultimately it should be Galatians chapter 6, where you're working to restore people back to knowing who they are in Christ, so they can understand the grace of God, which keeps us from doing things that does not please God. Now, I think we've struggled with that because we've been legalistic. We've struggled with it because we have not understood or rightly divided the word ourselves. So we do what we've been taught, what we've seen. We figure, hey, you mess up, you got to go sit down. It's like in the old church, they would bring the girl up and make her apologize if she got pregnant and all that stuff. They did what they, I'm not doing that. They did what they knew to do. As we grew, we get more revelation, more understanding of the word. It doesn't mean we act up more. The Bible even talks about grace. Because grace abounds, should we act up more? Absolutely not. But I think we got to get back to restoring people. God loves people more than anything. And even when they mess up, everybody is worth more than their last worst act. And so if they can't come to the church after doing the most horrible thing, and we not look to restore them, however that looks, case by case. Some people should be immediately, like, you know, You got to sit down for a couple of weeks and let's talk on Tuesdays or whatever. Some people may not. That's based on the pastor, the person, and Holy Spirit, who should be leading and governing the whole thing. That's my perspective. You may have 100 different ones on this call or on this Zoom, and some may be right, some wrong. I don't know. That's my perspective. That's how I govern, how I lead in our local church, London and I. And it works for us. People have been set down. Some people have not been set down. There's all kinds of things that goes on. Restoration is the key. If the end result is they don't go to church no more, they don't like the church, they give the church the finger, then somewhere we probably didn't do some best we could have.
Agreed. Pastor Wendell?
I definitely agree with Pastor Royal that, and I'll just add to it that there are many convictions on many levels, and I mean, who hasn't slipped, failed, or just laid down on the pallet, but at the same time, you got to look at what's being taught through Logos, through the Word of God, and what's being demonstrated. Some musicians are at churches where they feel comfortable to live those kind of lifestyles because how lenient that particular shepherd is with them. They feel comfortable. And so it depends on the church and what's being taught, how it's being taught through demonstration. At the same time, denominations don't get it right. Everything that's been taught hasn't been completely scriptural, but was more man-made, and it caused more of a condemnation than a conviction. And so you got to look at the difference, and please understand that if you're going to restore, you got to go to the root of the issue. That means pastors got to have a shepherd's heart, and that is to be not just prophetic, but to be loving and nurturing and pull them in, even when they want to cast them away, which is just, I'm a pastor, so I love unconditionally, and I'm going to say this online. I had a young man come to me and say, I want you to be my spiritual covering. And he was living an alternative lifestyle. And I was very much against that. But I had to understand I can't shun him. I got to love him, because it wasn't the lifestyle, it's his soul that is most important. And so when you look at that, it is the love of Christ that draws you. And if we display that as ministers, as leaders, MDs, ministers of music, not just pastors, everybody is required by God and by his word to live a godly lifestyle to the best of your ability. You may not get it right all the time, but when you get it wrong, make sure you are held accountable. Hold yourself accountable. Go to that pastor. Now, if you at that church where that pastor let you do anything, or he's or she doing it with you, then you need to get on out of there, because you at the wrong place, and all y'all about to go to a burning hell. It may be comical, but I'm very, very serious. Yeah. That's why the mantles are falling, and now this new generation is picking it up, and we got to tell the truth through demonstration, not just words. You create your worlds with your words. So what you say is going to come out of you, because what's in you is going to come out.
Agreed.
That's right. Thank you, sir. That's good. I think, Buster, we have, when it comes even to people living openly or messing up, and we talk a lot about deliverance, we have done a lot of the spiritual side, but not the natural side. Not knew how to deal with people's historic makeup and their historic creation, talking about the root. How did you get to this place? A lot of behavior is not taught, it's caught. A lot of things happen to people early on. I'm not talking about everything sexual. We think everything in church is sexual. But we got to be able to deal with people's historic makeup. Like, how did you get to this place? Why do you think this is okay? we don't deal with that. We quote a scripture, we throw oil, we lay hands, you fall out, and we think you should get up okay. I had an addiction with porn for a long time. I had an addiction with porn, and I was pastoring a church early on. I would go home and watch porn. I had to make a decision. Deliverance is a decision.
Yeah.
It's not oil on floor. It is not machine gun tongues. I did all of that. I did it all. It wasn't until I made a decision of dealing with the root of why I was watching that, and walk myself from point A to point B through the word of God. We don't want to talk about that. We want to put our weight on somebody else to pray me through. It's a decision. And if you don't make that decision, you stay there. The grace of God is still sufficient, but you'll never see the fruit in your life that you should see from walking out of something. I'll tell you the truth. And so I think, especially the Black church, we've missed it in this area. That's why I say, when you say, what do? Notice the overwhelming majority is sit them down, kick them out, punish them. That's what we've learned. And I get it. I'm not talking against holiness, but there must be a balance in the body. A lot of what we're sitting down, we caused it. A lot of what we put out, we caused it over years. And so we gotta be careful with approaching people, talking with them, talking them back to their birth, finding out what happened to them, again, from whatever, whoever, and then helping them get to the point where they too desire to be. I did not want to go home and do what I did. And so that's right. Spiritual leaders also need to be equipped to deal with social, emotional, and mental issues. We have not been able to deal with that. We've not been able to deal with that. We have done. I remember when we first started our church, we had to pray for this young lady who was kind of messed up. And we prayed for this girl Buster all night. I mean, woke us completely out. And what the girl needed was not oil and to be thrown in the floor. She needed a conversation. We needed to sit down and talk with her. And we didn't know how to do that because we only been taught one way.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's nothing knocking what we knew, but that's all we knew. Now we should be learning better. So when people come up and they mess up, I think it's a per case basis. I think the ultimate goal should be restoring them. How that looks differs for every house, every pastor, every situation based on the Holy Ghost.
That's great. I want to get Pastor Spencer in here before, and then Pastor Zoe. Then we're gonna be done tonight.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with what's been stated in terms of restoration. Things in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 that we have been given the word of reconciliation, the ministry of reconciliation. One of the things that we have to understand about ministry is it doesn't happen from 11 to 1 or from 9 to 11.
Oh man.
8:30 to 10:30. It's like if it doesn't happen between the opening song and the benediction, then you have to catch me next week. Ministry goes beyond that, and I think what's happening now, the church is realizing that she has to get back to ministry. I'm gonna say this, and I'll be done. I'm probably gonna get in trouble when I say this. We've got some churches. Y'all know we in the pandemic. Some churches have never stopped worshiping in person. Some have stopped. Some have now stopped and gone back. Here's the reality. I think that one of the reasons why some people are so hell-bent on getting back is because we become addicted to worship. And we are not connected to the one that we're supposed to be worshiping. And so if I truly have a relationship with God, whether I'm in a building that we call the church, or if I'm in my living room, I should still be able to connect with him in a way that causes change to be wrought in me. If everything is regulated to the building, then we're in some major trouble. I think that we've got to get back to ministering, and that's not just a pastor. I think the last thing I'm gonna say for real, Ephesians 4 outlined the fivefold ministry gift, or how we know it, as the apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher, that whole deal, for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry. We've put so much pressure on the pastor and so much responsibility on the pastor that everybody else is idle. And so we could get a lot more ministry done if we had more ministers. And I'm not talking about people that get licensed and stand behind a podium. People who understand their role and responsibility in the kingdom of God, and who outside of our in-person worship are actually connecting with each other, discipling one another, and living our lives together. That's how we grow. That's how we develop. That's how we mature. If we think it's going to happen in a 2-hour time span on Sunday, and of course, our attention span is not even that long anymore. So if we don't get it out in an hour and 15, then people are left hopeless and helpless. We got to understand that it's bigger than just that worship experience.
Yes, agreed. So, and then we're gonna be listen. It's so many good comments in here, and we got some amazing people. My brother is one of the ministers, the music directors at Christ University Temple, and he has a lot of great things to say. Pastor William Martin is on here, and he got a lot to say. Pastor Willie Taylor, we might need to get him on one time so we can hear his side of where he's coming from. The only thing I'm having a problem with Pastor Martin is I think it's more emotional and not spiritual and out of the scriptures. And so, Pastor Martin, I need us to have a conversation about that. We'll talk about that. Pastor, so go ahead.
I think that all of the cohorts here on the live have covered the biblical aspect. I want to speak for more of a natural aspect. And so I think that for a lot of us, we have mystified the idea of accountability. And with that being said, in the same way that the world is accountable as human beings, we too could be accountable. I don't have to be your pastor to hold you accountable as a human being. The issue becomes that we've spiritualized everything and we've made everything sin, when some things within the church are not a matter of sin, but in fact a matter of ethics. Okay? Now, we have a lot of people who are unethical within the house of God and within the world, period. But and I'm not going to be along with this at all. The reality of it is, most people, if we understood how to behave in an ethical manner, then we would have this one principle in ethics called universalizability. And all of that is fancy language for judging my actions based upon if my one act became a law across the entire world. And so that is, will the world survive or be thrust into chaos if I make the decision that I'm going to sleep with this person? Or if I make the decision that I'm going to throw this paper on the ground? If everybody did it, would the world survive or be thrown into chaos? That right there is where the accountability exists in just the human being. So when we deal with the concept of open sin, the word open there is extremely non-reductive, meaning that it does not just boil down to something simple. There are a lot of factors involved in the sin nature that people have. We all have an Adamic or a fallen nature. And with that being said, I think that when we use the concept, and I'm not killing the gentleman that said it, but I got to say it because the taste is in my mouth. I think that a lot of what we call open sin, when we call it open, it comes from a place of prejudice because we're disgusted by certain sins. And when we talk about open sin, we're talking about certain sins. And that in itself is prejudicial. And they would say in Law and Order, more prejudicial than probative. Come on, help me somebody. The reality is that we have to become more accountable to each other as people.
Yeah. Put the organ on, Doc. Turn the organ on.
I'm not dealing with the spiritual aspect because my brothers and sisters have covered it. But we have to become more accountable as people. In the same sense that there's a CEO at a Fortune 500 company, he has to hold you accountable. Accountability ain't spiritual. Accountability is just responsible human behavior. And so because we've spiritualized the concept of accountability, now we've become extremely sin conscious, but we're still unethical. Ooh. We're still hurting one another, and we're still doing things to where if everybody did it, we'd all be thrust into chaos. And so we have to remove the language of open sin and deal with discipleship of one another. Even people like in the 95 Thesis, you have people who will debate with Martin Luther concerning the need for this. But in the 95 Thesis, he talked about how the human being should be in a constant state of repentance. That's anybody that's aware of themselves.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A constant state of repentance.
I don't have to be your pastor to hold you accountable, because there's certain things that we would not allow. We wouldn't have to be accountable, and this is just being as simple as possible. If you see somebody who's about to step on a kitten, most of us would stop them. Why are you doing that? That's accountability. This kitten didn't do nothing to you, so now you're gonna step on this kitten, okay? And you need not to. Most people would step in. That is what accountability is. I don't have to be your pastor to tell you not to step on kittens. Okay?
Yes, sir. Listen,
the church has become so sin conscious and spiritualized everything that we become unethical.
My Lord.
And that's how we end up injuring musicians. That's how we end up with a spirit of offense. And I'm going to say this last thing, and I'm going to let it go.
Go ahead.
Relating to my brother and sister pastors, we have to begin to restore our own personal salvation. That being said, many of us will be dismissive, and it's easy to be dismissive because I don't want to deal with what you're dealing with. So you have many pastors that can be extremely dismissive because I can't address it in the musician because I'm not far enough removed from the musician's sin for me to address it. Ooh. Lord, help me in here tonight. I'm not far enough removed from sleeping and far enough removed from drinking and smoking. Because I am not far enough removed from it, I can sit you down and be dismissive and never address the actual sin. That's all I have to say.
My Lord.
And that in itself is unethical.
Unethical. So man. All right, so we opened up another can of worms. We let a couple of more beasts on this panel. Pastor Zoe, if y'all don't know Pastor Zoe was one of my singers in G3 who went down to Wiley College. I sent a few scholars to Wiley College to complete their degrees and to major in music. And Pastor Zoe was one of them who survived down there at Wiley College. And he finished up his degree down there. What is your degree in, Alonzo?
My degree is philosophical theology with an emphasis in Hebrew and Semitic languages.
Right, that. So,
what he just said.
Right, so
I knew it was gonna be deep. It's so deep over my head. We like,
right. He could have just been like performing arts. Okay, right. Pastor Zoe, very proud of him. Came from he's a testimony. And you know what? I would like for us to come back and just share our testimony. I think people need to hear about our past so they can know where we stand right now and also where we're headed. And so Pastor Reggie sharing tonight, even some struggles that he had. I like some of us got so many things we could lay out on the table and tell y'all about. But I really want to say tonight's panel was to open up some things about relationships. And I think relationships were dealt with tonight and how we sometimes mishandle relationships and how we should now move into establishing more pure relationships with each other. And so I thank God for this panel. I think this is great. Do me a favor, Pastor Spencer, can you pray us out of this? And then I'm going to say a few words after you pray. You know what? Let me say these things first and then you pray. Pastor Will has had many technical difficulties on tonight, and so we thank God for his mute button. We thank God for that. We are going to. He said he don't know about a part 21 to this because this has become part 25. But he's saying that we might need to come back in a different setting and just with a different mindset approaching it a different way. And I think that this is a great way. We got Pastor Lowe all the way from Ohio, Pastor Zoe all the way from Texas, the rest of us guys here in Illinois. But I really do believe that if we can get down to the root of the problem, that we're going to be able to bless some people. And I think tonight was the beginning of getting down to the root. There are so many great conversations and comments on Facebook. I want to go back and look through them and some more topics that we need to tackle. Pastor Will, I appreciate this opportunity to be your co-host on tonight. And Pastor Spencer, could you do us a favor and pray? I want to thank everybody. Pastor Reggie from Lifeline, Pastor James Anderson from JM Music.
JM Ministries International.
Right, JM Ministries International. He's South Africa. We thank God for Pastor Wendell Lowe, man. It's an honor to have you on here, man. I can't even speak to y'all. Already know how I feel about this guy, man.
Honors all mine. Thank
love you, man. Pastor Soul, love you, man. Rob, you are an incredible musician with an incredible mind, bro. And we love what you bring to our table, man. Tonight, you have even opened our eyes some more to how we should speak to relationships. And I was glad to hear what you said about sin and holding yourself accountable and holding ourselves accountable. That was really good. I saw your mom on here helping you out too, preaching for you. So we thank God for you. Pastor Spencer, God bless you and your church as well. Go ahead and pray us out if you could.
Hey, Buster, if you don't mind, I would like to yield to Dr. Lowe and let him pray us out.
Oh, man. Hey, look, you ain't going to get no fight from me. You're not going to get a fight from me.
That's my man, too.
Yes, listen, we went to
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So, well, Von Steuben was out of control. Huh? Von Steuben was out of control. A lot of y'all.
We can't tell you how many.
I know a few. Yes, sir. Go ahead and pray it out, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Brother Taylor, God bless you as well. Father God, we love you and we thank you for this time that we have had to share our hearts, our concerns concerning the music industry, the ministry, and ministry versus industry. God, we thank you for the wisdom, the knowledge, and the enlightenment that was shared tonight. Those who were watching, those who were on this panel, we ask God that as we zone off, we ask that you would bless everyone, let them rest well tonight. And God, we thank you for the vision of this panel. Let it continue to bless those who watch it from this day forward. We give you praise, declaring and decreeing that God, you will always be exalted and the devil will be, oh God, horrified. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Bless you guys.
Amen.
Love you, man. Love y'all.
All right.